All right, in this example, they ask to use a half angle formula to find the cosine of 165. So 165 is not one of the angles that's on the unit circle. And so what we're going to have to do here is to look at, and they want us to use a half angle formula, right? So one of these formulas right here, okay? And so what we're going to have to do is find an angle uh, x that when you divide it by 2, you get 165, right? So that is what we're going to need to do. So let me write that down in terms of math. So what we want to do is use an angle, find an angle x, right, such that when we divide it by 2, we come out to get 165 degrees, okay? And so, and we're doing that, right, because they specifically asked us to use a half angle formula. So, and so if I multiply both sides of this by 2, I get x equals 330, okay? Over here. Now 330 is one of the angles, right, that's on the unit circle. All right, so going back over here, what I'm going to do is write this as 330 degrees divided by 2. Because over here we worked out, right, that 330 divided by 2 is 165. So these are equal to each other. So now that I've written this as 330 over 2, right, that matches the form of the half angle formulas. And so I can rewrite this using this identity right here. So we know that the cosine of 330 over 2 is either plus or minus the square root of 1 plus cosine x 330 over 2. So it's going to be plus or minus the square root of 1 plus cosine 330 degrees over 2, like so. So I'm using this identity here with 330 playing the role of x, right? Okay, so here the choice between plus or minus is pretty straightforward, right? We know that we are calculating the cosine of 165, right? Where is 165, right? 165 degrees would be between 180 and 90, right? So it would be in quadrant 2 somewhere. Over here, points in quadrant 2 have negative first coordinates and positive second coordinates. Since the cosine is going to come from the first coordinate of some quadrant 2 point, we know we need to choose the negative here in this case. So that's what we're going to do. All right, the cosine of 330 degrees. Well, 330 degrees is one of the angles that's on the unit circle, right? So you can refer to the unit circle or just know that this is going to be square root 3 over 2, like so. All right, and so now we just need to keep working through this and simplify it as much as possible. One thing that we have here is a complex fraction. We need to get rid of that, right? That's a fraction that has fractions in the numerator and denominator. So let's get rid of that. To get rid of that, we're going to actually combine these two numbers. All right, so I need a common denominator for those two. And of course, that's going to be a 2. All right, then I can go ahead and since they have a common denominator, I can go ahead and combine those. 2 plus square root 3 over 2 all over 2 again. All right, and so I've combined the two fractions up in the top. So now I want to do the division. I have 2 plus square root 3 over 2 divided by 2, and then all of that divided by 2. Remember, right, you can rewrite this as a fraction, and that really should be underneath that root, just to be clear. So dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal, right? So dividing by 2 over 1 is the same as multiplying by 1 over 2. All right, and so I get minus square root 2 plus root 3 on top. On the bottom I get 4. And I've got a radical, a fraction underneath the radical sign, right? So trying to get rid of that, I split it up like this. It's going to be minus the square root of the top over the square root of the bottom. And finally, the last step here would be that the square root of 4 is just 2. And so that's it, and that's the final answer on this problem.